Oh wait, I got to put my makeup on. Another hour and a
Oh
half.
no! No makeup. Hey there, whippersnappers. That's what they call them, right? You millennials, all millennials out there. This is three old men yelling at clouds, where we bring some negativity back to Twitch.
That's
Except
right.
we don't talk about politics. We don't talk about religion. Sometimes we do talk about the weather, because you know that weather, it's pretty crazy.
It hurts
It's
my
supposed
bones.
to rain. That it is true. As I've gotten older, it started to hurt my bones.
So I am, as you can see, I put names at the bottom so you can tell who we are. That. I think Clay
Check
needs to
that
fix
out.
his stream just a little bit there because you can't see the names on his, but you can see them on mine.
Oh,
I
yeah,
am
that is
Dr.
true.
Diz, DM. DM's for Dungeon Master. If you don't know what that means, Google it, I guess. Right next to me, I got Double Alt Buck with the brand new hat there, which is his new slogan.
Yeah.
Buck stops here.
I'm the
And then
the official AI of the party.
Then over there in the corner, hanging out, is Clan Diesel. He looks
Hey,
smaller.
everybody. I
I'm just
know.
sitting, bro.
I
Do
do.
I have to like lean down here?
You guys are.
I'm like towering over everybody. I'm not this tall. I'm not. I'm really not this tall.
What he did, chat, was he
He's-
blind his camera to where he looks taller than us. Watch this.
It's true.
When I set up,
I'm definitely the shortest one here. So.
I'll be taller than this. That hurts my back. I ain't doing it.
All right. So what we do here is we just have a topic, and we complain about it and tell what we think is good or bad about it, and then we move on with our lives. What you do. And I remembered what I forgot just a minute ago because that's how old people work.
You want some Prevagen? Can we get sponsored by Prevagen to help with our memory? Yeah. Hey, Chad, this stream brought to you by Prevagen. That way we don't forget the script.
And we need some Ben Gay for the joints.
There you go.
And some
drink. Get your drink on.
Get your drink on. Tough acting to acting.
I'll get my drink on.
Wish I had some good drink, but save that for the weekend.
I'd share with you, but you ain't here.
We save it for the weekend. There's Matt Smith, FTL. He's gonna have me dancing before long, guys. Yeah. I got a DDR pad now, so I will be doing some Dance Revolution stuff.
Will that be streamed?
I don't know. I have to try it first. I may just stream it from the beginning.
And
it's going to be awful.
Will you implement clips in your stream?
Sure. Yeah.
I want to do this. Can I do this?
Oh, animation with that Prime sub.
Nice.
Thank you very much. This is a surprise on a Thursday. And that's some disco lights.
So you guys know, subscribing to this does not get you a raise at the end of the year. So I don't know what you're shooting for, but it ain't happening.
It is a good Thursday. All right, guys. So D&D.
It is until that web server gets shut down. Remember who has the true power, chat? The true power. Well, that's true because he is a Navy AI.
He is the Navy AI here. Yep. So D&D. Everybody knows we like it.
Animation subscribe to me too. Hi, suck it, Diz.
It's not a competition.
Unless it's Monday. Monday
is
a competition.
Monday. Then it's a total competition.
That's true. Your web server is saved for another month. Good
That's extortion, sir.
It's strategy, sir, and it works.
We appreciate the support.
We do. Thank you very much. You don't have to sub at all, but we appreciate
it. Yep. So D&D. We do play some D&D here and there, right?
We do.
I been playing it for over a decade, or maybe 2 decades.
We've been
So
known to dabble on the weekends.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So we definitely like it, but there are things about it that maybe we don't like, or little elements that they've changed. Um, so specifically, I don't know. We don't really have a list of where this is going to go, so this is going to meander all over the place. So personally, what something I don't like is I feel like they have maybe oversimplified it with the fifth edition. I do like the ease of access to it for everyone being able to come in, but it's like the advantage disadvantage thing doesn't completely address every situation for me, because it's almost like
Yeah.
things are black or white, or dead in the middle. There's no like range for me.
I can see that.
Yeah.
So you're saying that as a DM that you'd rather you have a range to choose from than a boundary than you can alternate and choose yourself.
I don't completely hate it, but it's just like in 3.5, you had a lot of pluses and minuses. So it made it very difficult when you went to roll something because it was just a lot of math. It was just like, all right, I get
That
plus
is
2 from the
true.
shield, and I got plus 3 from this, and
The further back you go in D&D editions, the more math is involved.
it is.
So you're saying that prior to 5, we needed a bachelor's in mathematics.
You did. Maybe a PhD if you go back to doing the Thaco.
I miss Thaco. That's when I got started, when there was a Thaco, and your armor class went reverse.
Yeah,
So you wanted like a negative, like if you had like a -5 armor class, you were the shit.
So you just run around naked, right?
No, it didn't work like it.
Yeah. It worked because you took your armor class and then you took that number and you subtracted it from the hit.
Yeah. It's almost like risk.
Yeah, almost, yeah, because Thaco stands for to hit a armor class of 0, which is like the default armor class. So anything below 0 takes into account you're wearing armor. So there was that. That was second edition. Well, first and second edition. I got personally started on second edition. It's when I came into D&D back in the day.
Yeah. The rules were a little thick. Like you really had to sit down and study these rules. There were a lot of them. Now they've really simplified it, and I like it being simple, but I wish it just had a little bit of that complexity in there. I'm not even exactly sure how to add it in. I mean, you still have it. Like when you cast Shield of Faith, you get a +2 to your armor class, so they're still doing it.
Yeah, there's just a lot less negative numbers and fractions now.
I wish there was like a range of, like, instead of it just being advantage, disadvantage, there was maybe like 5 options there, or something.
So would you rather have it so, like, say if I have my character is in cover and you're going to attack me, instead of it giving disadvantage to your attack, like you'd rather have it, okay, he's in full cover. So for me, the DM, for my character to hit the player character, then I have to roll with like a -4 penalty to the attack roll.
Well, technically, you've actually picked out one of the things in 5th edition that actually has a plus minus on it. It's because when you're undercover, half cover gives you a +2 to your AC, and 3/4 gives you a +4 to your AC. So you actually are adding to your AC. It doesn't necessarily take away from the attack, but you can see it as being a takeaway from the attack.
I figured that would honestly be an advantage disadvantage.
Yeah, you would think, but they kept that one. There's certain things that they kept it on.
That's weird. Yeah, now you're right. Back in the old editions, there was a lot more rules that you went by. So, like in 5th edition, everybody can be everything. Like you can be any race you want, you can be any class you want, you can be any subclass, whatever. Back in the older editions, first edition and second edition, or advanced Dungeons and Dragons, you had a limit. certain races could only be certain classes, and then certain races could only be monsters. You couldn't play those races; could not be player characters by default. If you just read the straight monsters manual and dungeon masters guides back in those days, that was it. It's like these are monsters; these stay monsters. So you couldn't play a vampire, right? Or you couldn't play an orc or whatever. They were all evil, and you couldn't play evil. And they've dropped that, which I guess is okay. It's a little weird now playing it, and some of the people we play with will bring in weird ass races that you beyond your normal. Like I say, normal as in like human, elf, dwarf, halfling type races. That's the standard fare of D&D. Where now you have like Aarakocras and Tritons and the elephant guys and rhino guys and
Loxodons,
the vampire Loxodons, pterodactyls, whatever.
We've even brought in a class that is like kind of not actually, in the D&D Beyond, not actually in the official stuff. With we have a Zendikar vampire, which is out of Magic the Gathering, which technically Magic the Gathering is part of D&D now, but that specific part was not added into the official stuff. So.
Gotta hydrate.
You gotta hydrate. You're behind like 14 hydrates. So from the other day, I need to start a counter on this stream.
Apparently, yeah, I need to do that.
How many hydrates? So I'm not completely opposed against the advantage disadvantage stuff. I just wish there was like maybe a way to do more with it than just those two things. But it does keep it simple. It does make it where anybody can kind of jump in and play, and it's not hard to pick up these
rules. Now there is the master rule, though.
There is the master rule,
and the master rule says the DM can make whatever rule that he wants. So I mean, if you prefer that in your game, then you could implement that. It makes it a little bit different on, a little bit harder to do on the D&D Beyond character sheets, but you can do it.
I can develop it myself.
Yes.
Problem is, I don't know what it should be. Now, I did have an idea, and other people have had this idea as well. Like, I don't like that there are all these weapons and armors out there, but rarely do you ever see characters using some of these weapons and some of these armors. Like, who do you know that wears hide armor? I mean, you just don't see it.
I don't.
Or if they're wearing it, it's because it's the only thing that they could find, and they're gonna quickly upgrade out of it as soon as they could. And just like a club. Have you ever seen any character use a club? Not a great club, just a club, just a little club. Like a Bam Bam Club.
Captain Caveman.
You could play a gnome. A gnome barbarian with a little
gnome barbarian. I like it. I like it. I kind of thought whoever doesn't have a hat on has to get naked. Uh-oh.
Hang on a second. Let me get rid of my hat because
you'll have to go over to my spicy side for that.
Spicy side.
Yeah. Only Zach.
Diesel.
It's Clan Nino.
Welcome to Clan Diesel. Up all night.
Up all night. Yeah. So on the weapons and stuff, I've seen where like some people have tried to go in and give incentives to use like weapons. Because if you're a rogue, most of the time, if you have the option to use a short sword over a dagger, you'll take it because it does a D6 instead of a D4 damage. But if the dagger gave you more crit range, you crit on a 18, 19, or 20, you might be like, okay, well, I'll take that over the, +2 to the hits. There's stuff like that. But I don't know what you guys think of that. I think that would add to the game.
Well, from looking at all of the different stuff, researching all the stuff since y'all asked me if I wanted to play with y'all, there's none of that there. like if I wanted to use a club, you'd have to homebrew it to make it, worth what I wanted to do with it, because it wouldn't work. Like when we implemented the ancestral weapon for Meridius with that trident,
Mhm.
We had to modify that because
Yeah,
that's
that
not what
whole
it was
thing
going to do.
was that whole thing was from an outside source. So
Right.
Yeah.
And so, I had no problem doing it, learning how that worked and making it flow and work with my character. But they're taking all that away to where you don't have creativity with your ability or your weapons anymore. So you would have to homebrew everything for them to have a stat block in the character sheet for it to even work on their rolls.
yeah. And like I've tried to sit down and do it myself. It is a monumental task to do. I feel like wizards would have the manpower to do something like that. I really wish that they would maybe put some time into that.
I do too. Yeah, and as Buck said, like the ancestral weapon thing didn't even exist. We had to go out and
Yeah.
find it in a bonus material that's outside of Wizards of the Coast. Kind of like the Harley Quinn class we looked at, I think last week or the week before. But a lot of times when we're starting up a campaign and people are rolling their characters, Diz will be very um, nice and let people pick their equipment, or say, you can start and I'll let you have like one magical item to begin with, or you can start and you can have so much gold to buy your equipment or whatever. And a lot of times, this will allow people to skip the basic weapons, like just a normal dagger or a club, like you said, and skip to like a rapier or a long sword or a great sword, or some big thing, like that, more than just a plain you're a poor character, this is what you start with, basic equipment. That a lot of the stuff like the club was designed to be, you start out and you have 2 gold, spend wisely.
Yeah. Right. You have a club and you immediately get rid of it as soon as you can.
Exactly. So most of the time people get to skip that basic set of equipment. So like you said, you never see it anymore. And like Buck said, Buck's never been in a campaign where somebody just used a straight club or something. Everybody has moved on from that basic starting gear when they start. Because if they're not buying an advanced weapon, then they're skipping like the hide armor, like you said earlier, and they're skipping to
leather,
studded leather armor, studded leather armor, chainmail, something.
Yeah.
They can wear. Now the hide armor would be good for like a druid.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because druids can't wear metal, but they can wear hide because it's natural. Right.
Why not wear it's natural.
Exactly. So, but I think, providing a bonus for somebody to use that basic equipment to get it, back in rotation stuff is a good idea. And I wouldn't have a problem with that if I was a player at all. It makes it more worthwhile at that point.
What if they got carried away and they went full Destiny on it, where they would have seasons, and like all of a sudden we have the season of the short sword, and it's OP.
No,
I'm out.
No,
I am
out.
Done.
Not at all.
I was throwing that out there because Regan's in your chat, so I thought he might have something to say about it.
I'm out. That ain't happening.
Oh.
The never-ending grind fest. That D&D does not need that at all.
I keep raising the level. You guys got to get to 30 now.
Yep. Well, you've hit level 20. Now we got to work on your lot level, or whatever it would be called. Your RP level.
That's one thing. RP level. That's one thing I hope they never put into D&D, like an equipment.
We're gonna up
score.
your gear score.
Or your gear score.
No.
So no seasonal D&D campaign. No, not yet. Oh. So there is something Buck added to the campaign that doesn't really. It kind of exists there, but it's not as fleshed out as the outside material that we use to bring it in. Is the professions, like your little cooking skills and stuff like that. It doesn't really truly exist in D&D, and we had to go out and find another source to make it functional.
Yeah.
And it really does exist in game, though, if you think about it, because if you're stopping to eat, stopping for the night,
Yeah.
you're gonna eat.
Yeah, it's there.
Where's the food coming from? You're gonna hunt. You're gonna go fish. You're gonna gather the plants. You're gonna perform those tasks regardless. If you get this profession stuff, then you can get points and experience for doing what your character's going to have to do in role playing anyways.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to come with like how deep you want the game to be. So it's kind of like it's Skyrim, right? So you can play base Skyrim and you have your adventure and all that stuff, or you can add like the survival mod to Skyrim or turn on survival mode, and then it becomes kind of like Ark or something else where you have to eat and you have to drink and you have to do this stuff. It's how real do you want your role play to be? Is it okay? We're camped and we've ate, we've had a long rest, and we're good to go. Let's get going and get the next session. Or is it okay? DM, I'm going to take my character and I'm going to hunt for 2 hours while we're resting. Or okay, DM, I'm going to cook the meal tonight. Using my cooking ability, or I'm going to go scavenge for herbs and stuff like that. So it's how deep you want it. I think, but that's where I like these extra rules. So, like, if you're like, well, I really would like to add this to the game, but I don't know how. How do I create this ability? A lot of times people have already created it for you. You just have to go and look, and then you read the rules, and it makes sense. They've brought in, okay, well, you can do this, but you have to have this attribute score, and you have to have this equipment. It costs this much to do it, and you have to roll this to see how much of this material you bring in, or how much food you cook, or how good of a cook that you are when you're cooking and stuff like that. So, yeah, I like it, but it just depends on. I think it would appeal to more people that have been playing D&D for a while that want to add something new to the campaign.
I mean, it's just like anything else, like encumbrance. I don't really use encumbrance unless it's really just egregious. Just like I pick up this
JD
piano.
wants to pick up 500 pounds and tote it. This is like, how much can you really pick up? 420? Then you can't pick up 500 pounds. Well, crap.
Yeah. So, but I feel like we find it from these third-party sources, and they do a pretty good job. But even the professions thing we use, it didn't, to me, Buck jumped on it and really grabbed it by the horns, and before he even hit level 5, he had like 3 of them mastered. And I wish it was more of a challenge for him. That way, when he actually reached that pinnacle, he would really feel accomplished. And maybe there's little rewards along the way instead of it just being one reward at the end. Again, Wizards has the manpower to pull these things off.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably the only drawback to that profession stuff, and I agree with it. Like, yeah, I got 3 of them done. We're one cooking session away from me having my final one done, and that's great as far as what it can do for me. But at the same time, my character wasn't even with the party at the time I was doing any of it. He was doing that as a side venture because we were going through a different arc of the campaign at the time. Yeah. And so really I didn't get to participate in what I was doing with my group. I didn't get to share in any of the things that I learned or acquired with the group because he wasn't there. But time frame wise, he was still doing all the actions that he would have been doing had he been with the group. So it did end up being a little lackluster as a whole, but it has paid off since he's made it back to the team, like saving our wizard and keeping the cleric a spell.
And it makes the characters more unique because now you're not just a fighter, you have that extra ability now. So it makes you, different than
I can be like a
Timmy's fighter
now
that we play, in the other game.
Just a hitter.
Yeah.
Speaking of the expanded rules and stuff, though, this brings up another thing, and I feel that Diz will be the perfect person to talk about this. Is when you add stuff to your campaign, or you spent like 10 hours during the week building this adventure for the players to go through, and then they don't. They completely go somewhere else, or you build in like great magic into the campaign so that they can use it, and then they don't.
Yes.
So what about that, Des? I bet that really gets you yelling at clouds.
So it actually doesn't as much as you think. I spent a fair amount of time developing, like I think we called it what was it? Boundless Magic, I called it, and
Yeah.
it allowed the characters to be able to push themselves beyond what they could normally cast, at the risk of personal damage or even death. And nobody did it. It's also I also give inspiration. Um, I usually select something that somebody said from the last game, and I use that as a title for that game. And then in the next game, I give that person an inspiration die to use at any point during that game. It has never been used one time.
That is true. Yep, that is
Um,
true.
Now, and I have a defense to your first part, Diz. I don't
yeah.
have a character that would benefit from using that ability yet.
I mean, Wild Magic was fun. Wild Magic though is actually part in the D&D thing. It's not something I spent time to develop myself. Um, and I
But like
appreciate
your
stuff like Wild
augments
Magic.
that we instituted from the ancestral weapons guides, I used them. I utilized them.
Yeah, we had like a slot system instead of going to a vendor and having to get a weapon enchanted. I made it where they could sell little like enhancement. What do we call them? Little tokens or something?
Runes that
Runes,
went into slots.
and they
or
could be installed into a weapon or armor, and it would enhance it. So it was a little bit easier for them to upgrade stuff. But only maybe 2 people kind of took on to that. So
And
it's
see,
Tanasi,
to
yeah.
me, it made perfect sense
We all
because
miss
I'm a
Tanasi.
gunslinger that can be within 5 feet of you in melee range and still shoot you like I was 30 feet away from you because of that augment that's in my armor. And I feel like if other people in the campaign would sit down long enough to actually read through it and understand what the things are, they would be like, man, if I had this in my armor or if I had this on my weapon, then I could do more here or I could be more useful in this type of situation. But they just doesn't seem like they've really looked at it.
Yeah, I had that. I had those 2 things, and then I had a called shot thing as well. None of those things really got adopted. So we just kind of moved on without
I've
some
tried
of
to
them.
use called shot 3 times, chat, and Diz told me no each time. Just to put that out there. Because what I'm trying to call as a shot, Diz said would be impossible for me to make
it. Has to be in the realm of possibilities, I guess. So all these things we're talking about, they kind of remind me of something else. And get ready to see clans blood boil. It kind of reminds me of Unearthed Arcana that Wizards used to give us. They still produce it and put it out there in PDF form, but they don't put it into D&D Beyond anymore.
That's right. That's right. During one of the campaigns that is no longer with us, RIP campaign, I made an artificer. But the thing was, at that time, artificers were not in the core rules anymore. They were Unearthed Arcana. And so I built a character, and then they became real rules. The only problem is that when you build a character in Unearthed Arcana in D&D, you can't, once they take it away, you can't add to it anymore. It's done. So then it sucked because then I had to delete the character and recreate the character. The problem is that some of my abilities I didn't have anymore because they had been removed when the transition over. But still, I like the Unearthed Arcana because you kind of get to use these almost kind of like they're alternate classes than what's in the books. And sometimes it's really cool abilities and stuff that you wouldn't think. It's just people at Wizards just throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. So you'll have weird abilities like now you have tieflings that can be warlocks that can heal. that was Unearthed Arcana at one time because everybody's like, why would you have a healing warlock? Well, like, what if they, made a pact with Celestial instead of something demonic or something undead?
Why would a tiefling give a damn about healing anybody?
Hey,
right? But that's what you're getting at. Like, why would a tiefling care?
They care. For me, like right now, the most recent Unearthed Arcana deals with character classes and abilities and stuff, races specific to the world of Kryn, which is the Dragonlance campaign setting, which, as everyone knows, is my favorite campaign setting of all time. Near and dear to my heart. But right now, I can't go into D&D Beyond and make a Kinder or a Knight of Solamnia or a Kryn sorcerer or a Kryn wizard that's based off the phases of the moon. I can't do that. A year ago, I could. And I could play that as that character and test it out, and everything was built in. So, I could do my automatic rolls. It would add my pluses and everything. So now if I want to make one, I have to basically, print out a paper character sheet and run that way, which makes it a little bit harder.
Or you have to homebrew it. You can homebrew it.
Yeah, or you have to go in and homebrew it. Yeah, you'd have to go in and homebrew it. But I just think that it's cool that back in the day, you could go in, and if you wanted to say, I would love to see how this character would work in the campaign or in an adventure, you could run that character that's not an official class or race or whatever through that adventure and see how it plays. To see if something was like, and if they didn't add it through, guess what? You could still play it because it's Unearthed Arcana. You just couldn't, change it beyond a certain point. And as long as you understood that, you were fine with it. And then, they took that away. Now you can't do anything with them at all in D&D Beyond, and it makes it a lot harder to play the Unearthed Arcana. Because I would say 99% of D&D campaigns now ran out of D&D Beyond.
Right.
Very few people, I would say, are still using paper character sheets. And so that's what I hate about them taking that away from D&D Beyond. I think it lessens your ability to play or play test.
And that's the crazy thing, right? So with Unearthed Arcana, when they launched all that stuff, they have at their disposal one of the biggest free playtesting organizations in the world, the fans of D&D. Throw that shit out there and let us get our hands on it and read up on it. And the moment we find that it's interesting, we're going to try to implement it. And then we can give you feedback on whether this is broken or not.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pay a thing. Because most places, when you have testers, you got to pay them a little something to test your stuff and make sure that it all works and give feedback. They ain't got to do that with this.
Right.
I mean, like, I was looking at the list and they had, rabbit folk and owl folk and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, you can make a Strix, which is more of like a horned owl. And then they took it away. And I'm like, well, there goes that. And then the bunny rabbit, I was like, oh, it could be like Bucky O'Hare, have some like that. And they took it away. And then like, oh, well, now we put it back in, but it has different abilities and sets than what you saw to start with.
There's always the seasonal content.
There's always the chance that they, the playtest stuff just didn't work. There was a cleric subclass that was broken, and it never made it into real gameplay because it was just too powerful.
Yeah.
Luckily, though, a couple things that I told y'all about that I saw in Unearthed that I was hoping I'd get to play, and then they took it away. They eventually did implement it into official, like the Drake Warden Ranger. A ranger that befriends a young dragon that can call a dragon to their side in the middle of combat. And when the dragon's time's up, it just goes back to its den until you summon him again. Like, that could change the flow of a fight right there better than a Beastmaster Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's lots of things I feel like Wizard, you know, could add to the game to make it a little more customizable per the character, and you could choose to use them or not, but I feel like they're
The
the only ones who could really put them in there. So.
I'll be honest with you, the biggest thing that I wish Wizards would bring back, and this is something Wizards really hasn't done. This was more of an old back in the day TSR thing when D&D was still owned by TSR. Was campaign settings. I really missed that because the great thing about campaign settings back in the day was each one was unique. They all share the same core rules, across all Dungeons and Dragons, but each one had its own kind of flavor a little bit, right? So you had, Greyhawk, which was the first D&D developed by Gary Gygax. You had the Forgotten Realms, which everybody knows, Driss and all this Faerun and all this stuff. But pretty much everybody plays on modern way anyway. You had Spelljammer, which was space travel between the different worlds of D&D. You had, like I said, my favorite, Dragonlance, which dealt with a place that the gods had left and then came back, and dragons were a myth, but then they became real again. And magic was controlled by the different phases of the moon and stuff. So that was something different in itself. Uh, you had Dark Sun, which was no gods, no magic. Everything was psionics and clerical abilities. But the planet was ruled by these 5 dragon kings. And it was a desert. The entire planet was a desert. And then there was an Arabia Al Qadim, I think it was called. That was an Arabic thing with genies and flying carpets and stuff. I mean, there was just a ton of them, but each one had a little bit of different
D&D in Aladdin.
You could, yeah, you 100% could. You definitely could. Like I said, and the Planescape, which was travel between the planes. So I mean, in Spelljammer and Planescape, you could go between these different campaign settings if you wanted to. You don't want to be a normal elf from Planescape? Fine, you're a planar elf. So you're an elf that was born on the plains instead of on a planet, that the normal campaign settings on. And they've tried a little bit over the years. Like 3rd edition was Eberron, which brought us to Warforged. And then they kind of went back to, okay, the core place is Forgotten Realms again, and we'll just go from there. And they've kind of 4th edition had like a Dragonlance campaign box set that you could buy. But that was another thing, the box sets. I love having the big box sets with the rules for that campaign setting together on there and all about the lore of that world and stuff like that. That just makes it deeper. You can focus on one thing, and how that particular world is different from all the other ones in Dungeons and Dragons. And that's something I miss a lot from back in the day.
Yeah, I never played. Well, I never played first or second, like actual tabletop. My 2nd edition, I did play games that were based on the rules.
Baldur's Gate.
I didn't know a lot about those campaign settings. Yeah, Baldur's Gate for sure.
It was at Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale and stuff like that is the most famous ones.
Yep.
On 2nd edition, I believe.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, so by that token, by what Clan was saying that he missed, I technically play that in what was your Sunday campaign disc with my Triton, because he's from another plane of existence and showed up to fight alongside the guys that are in the campaign.
It is true, but I don't know if it's the same as that. Now in D&D 5th edition, in the Faerun, in the choral setting, whatever, you have all these planes. They're pre-set up. This is just how they are. The outer planes. You have the elemental planes. And then you have all the inner planes. In the middle, you have material plane. So that's kind of, it's just set up that way. I don't know if that campaign setting is different or if it's.
And then of course you have like the 9 Hells and Celestial on the outer ring.
Yeah, maybe you
Right.
just couldn't travel to these things back in editions. I'm not sure about that. So I'm not afraid of pulling resources from these other older
Right.
versions of D&D. I've pulled spells and weapons and different things using my.
I mean, like character sheet wise, we have a pretty cookie cutter character sheet as far as it's basic, standard, everything's lined out for you and easy to kind of read and follow. But then if you wanted to shift like Cyberpunk's side of D&D, that character sheet has so much crap on it that you could get lost just trying to figure out what all you're trying to roll for. As soon as the DM's like, all right, give me a hacking check, and you're like, hang on a second. Like, I got to find this thing. But with what we have, it's very uniformed and straight lined and doesn't seem to deviate at all.
Yeah. Another thing I miss, played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons Online. First came out, and when it was at its probably at the height of its popularity, they used 3.5 rules, and they have a lot more like skill checks than we have now. Like we have sleight of hand, or if I go to pick a lock, there's not an actual skill check for that. I'm just using my dex plus if I have thieves tools and are proficient with them, I can add my proficiency bonus. But back then, you actually had open lock and you had disarm trap. Those were two separate skills. Like you had to put points into them individually. And like open lock was a dex based skill, and disable a device was an intelligence based skill. So your rogue had to have intelligence. That couldn't be your dump stat for your rogue unless you just didn't want him to disable traps, which is fine as well.
So here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want to play a Pathfinder based game? Because Pathfinder is based on D&D 3.5 rules.
Yeah, I've never actually played any Pathfinder, so I don't know what actual difference.
I haven't either.
Pathfinder 3.
So I think
I would be
wants
open
to know,
to it.
do we need to learn this together?
I would be open to it, but the whole reason why when you watch Critical Role, they were playing Pathfinder, and when they went to stream it and do all that, they switched to 5th edition because it was easier to maintain. There was less rules, so it would be really difficult to stream 3.5 because it would be. You think combat is slow now? Wait till you have to add math on top of it.
That's true. It's something me and Josh have talked about before with you, Diz, is maybe doing a retro D&D adventure or something where we pull out like a 2nd edition adventure or something, and we use that, or 3 or 3.5 or 4 rules, an adventure based on that, and we use those rules to run that adventure. So it's like we're playing, D&D in 1997.
Yeah,
instead of 2022, and to see how things have changed, because now we're used to like, okay, your ability scores can go up to 20, right? Mm-hmm. That's the maximum they can go to unless a deity intervenes on you. Okay, back in like 2nd edition, you could have your maximum was 18, and anything over that you got fractional ability, so you could have like 18, 25 over 100 strength, or or something like that. Now you can go up to 20. So it would be weird. It would be an interesting thing to watch, where we're so used to 5th edition, try to go back to an earlier edition, or to Pathfinder, because now they've got Pathfinder 2nd edition rules, and see how everything is different.
I tell you what was really weird for me in 5th edition is when I first started looking at, and this is going to lead into something that I really don't want to talk about D&D right now, but what was really kind of threw me for a loop, it wasn't like a bad thing, but it was just weird, is I came from playing like 3.5 rules, and you could get like a +6 to one of your stats, and I come into like we started in 4th edition, and then we moved on to 5th edition. But in 5th edition, you don't get items that give you pluses to any ability scores. Like rarely, you have like the belt of dwarven kind that doesn't give you a plus to it. It just says you get your constitution is now set to this. You know, it doesn't give you a plus or minus. I don't think there's any weapons unless they're homebrewed that give you an actual plus and minus to ability scores or skill checks. Maybe you don't even see those things. Which leads me into the next thing. I go into D&D Beyond, and I look for wizard robes. There's like 6 of them in there. Surely to go a wizard, the most versatile class in D&D, should have more than 6 robes to choose from in a campaign, where I don't have to make one as the DM. I mean, surely to goodness they could come up with some ideas like, here's the robe of snakes, and every time you open it up, there's a snake that pops out. Or robe of practical jokes or something. I don't know.
I was gonna say that's what happens when I pop out my robe.
Snake pops out.
Snake pops out.
Yeah.
Do you also have the song "My Anaconda Don't" playing when that happens?
Yes.
I mean, and you go out there and look for like swords. I mean, there are some really cool swords. Like, what's the lightsaber one called? It's the Sunblade.
Sun sword. Yeah, Sunblade.
Sunblade is really cool. But then you see Moon Touched, and you'll see the one where it causes it'll decapitate somebody if they roll a natural 20. Was it Vorpal? I don't even think Vorpal's in D&D Beyond.
I don't think it is either. I think Josh had to homebrew that one.
I don't think it's an official thing. And I wish these things were in there. It's like, I don't know what they're spending their time on. It seems like they're spending time on, like, they release a book every like 3 months or 2 months. I don't know why some of this stuff isn't in there.
Yeah, I miss the items going beyond +2. Like you never see like a short sword +4 anymore. Like I used to remember playing and being able to see like sword +5 or +7 or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, up to I think it went up to 10, and now and that's it. Like, shouldn't these things be more powerful than this?
So let's say short sword or something.
I mean, you've got like, one of the players in our Saturday campaign has a hammer that he can throw that thing like a solar titan in Destiny and then recall it like Thor. And it's a rare, but there aren't very many weapons.
There's not, like, that just looking at rares for swords. There's 3 rares here. There's 2 rares. Life stealing and wounding, and that's it. Like, what? Where's the variety?
That's like when we looked up rapier that night, Diz, for the rogue character. We found like one that wasn't just a +1 rapier.
I mean, most of the magic items, that's what it is. It's this item +1. There's your magic item.
Regan says Vorpal, that's the best raid DPS for this season. For this season.
That's true. That's true. Next season it'll be Solar 3.0.
Probably. Or it could be Arc 3.0. Not sure.
That's where I feel like it's like these little details, like the skills, like, I don't know. I wish, like, I was looking at 3.5 skills, and there was one for balance, one for swimming. But now it's just I jump in the water and I swim. Okay, well, how's your athletics? I guess it'll be, because it's the generic stat for anything kind of strength based, and swimming will be more strength based than dex based.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean that is something from the older editions that's lost now is a little bit of that control of what kind of type of that character you are. Are you a rogue that can pick locks, or are you a
Yeah.
rogue that can disarm traps, or are you a rogue that's good at pickpocketing?
Yeah. And you would
Stealing.
you could, like, every time you would level up, you would get points to put into these skills. So it wasn't just like you had to take a feat to get more points into these skills or increase your ability score, which is what you have to do in fifth edition. But in 3.5 and stuff, you would just get points all the time, and you could even like level 2 or level 2, you get a bunch of stuff. Level 3, like level 6, like a lot of people just don't get good stuff at level 6. It's just like a bump along the way. You would get skill points where you can put them into different things. And let's say you hadn't been focusing on swimming, and all of a sudden you just pump all those points into swimming, and all of a sudden you're a good swimmer. So,
Yep.
but yeah, I wish they would do a little bit more with that, more with the weapons, just things that where you can customize your characters a little more.
Mhm.
Because I don't know that I need 30 more subclasses, which is what they're going
Yeah,
to come
that's
out with
true. Yeah,
this
that
next
that is
book in
true.
Yeah,
May.
the one in May.
I don't know that I need them. I think we have a lot right now. Um,
How
and
many
it's
different
easier
types of
for us.
fighters are there?
I know there's a lot. There's some that I haven't seen anybody ever play. There's the one that can cast like magic. He's like a dark knight. Can't remember what it's called exactly. I have to look it up.
Be careful, D and D.
Eldritch,
Final Fight,
Eldritch Knight.
Eldritch Knight. That's
Yeah,
be
See,
he
careful.
can
D
probably
and
do
D's gonna
Eldritch
come
Blast.
calling.
He
I
can
mean,
probably do
Final
that
Fantasy's
Eldritch
gonna
Blast.
come calling.
Final
see,
Fantasy.
Clan, you
Yeah,
like tieflings and you like using Eldritch Blast. You should become a
it
tiefling
is.
fighter and be an Eldritch Knight.
There you go.
But you have to wear the Onion Knight helmet. But when I
Anybody out
first
there in
started,
chat? Are they?
when I first started with
Speak
y'all,
up.
right?
You guys can grab too. Yeah.
Like I made a list of everything that I thought looked cool in class and a race, and like demigod was on that list, right? And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
like I could be a demigod right off the bat as a level 1 character.
See,
By
used
the
to you couldn't
time,
do that.
but by the time we started, it was gone. And I'm like, well,
Yeah,
good thing I didn't pick that because it's not even here anymore.
yeah. I mean, seriously, if you pick up what can't you do, you're a demigod. I mean, who's going to stop you?
Right. I mean, you could, recant back to all the stories and stuff you've heard of Hercules. What stopped him?
Yeah.
A god? That was about the only thing, and that was iffy on if the god could stop him or not.
Right.
So once you're in that realm, what do you fear?
Right. I mean, pretty much, if you're a level 20 character, you're almost like a demigod status. It would take something massive to stop you once your character reaches level 20.
Yeah.
Unless you were Baker, who
Well,
actually
that's true.
became.
Not everybody, though, gets to ascend to godhood. Some of us get thrown in the abyss.
I mean, but you wanted to be there.
But I'm not bitter.
I heard you wanted to be there, though.
Not bitter at all.
Something about getting away from your brother-in-law and all that shit.
Hooking up with his sister, and then your best friend's sister, and then getting her pregnant and having to marry her.
Right?
That wasn't me.
That was
Chad, that
no,
was not my character.
No,
that was somebody else's character.
That's what I'm saying. That's why you wanted to be down there, was because of all that shit that happened. You're like, I gotta get away from this. So you wanted to be in the Nine Hells. It's okay.
All right. Mordecai will show us the way. He's here to save us.
Of course, then you got, that ranger that wanted a piece of you the whole time.
That's true.
I feel like this would very easily become an after the roll.
I mean, it could.
Listen, okay, off topic chat. I have ideas for after the roll.
I want to do it. A couple of those.
So after this, if we ever start a Patreon, then you can stay tuned for after this show and before the show where we go over shit.
Yeah,
but yeah. I have ideas.
We should alternate. We should alternate. We should do, like the week that we're gonna play D&D. We should do this show, and then
the week after
after the roll, and we can talk.
The roll.
And then
I like it.
Back and forth.
Yeah,
I like it.
I mean,
we might start that.
So that means next week we do this, and then the week after that we do after the roll.
We can do after the roll. We can start that if you guys want to. Then we can bring in, one or two other people and on that and just chit chat.
The party.
The D&D. So, anyway, is there anything else that really grinds your gears?
Yeah, I've got one. See, I got this DM. Maybe you can help me with this, Dis. I got this DM that every time I want to do something cool, he says I can't do it.
Yeah.
He says that I got to roll a dex check, and even when I get a high one, he says I'm not good enough to pull it off. I think he's discriminating on the size of my character.
Oh, it sounds like my wife. Good thing Savage Sally is not in chat.
That's good.
Is there anything I can do to help my situation with the DM, Dis, that you can think of?
I mean, it really
find boots of giant kind and grow 3 feet.
It really sounds like, there was some boots in my first campaign where it had somebody grow.
That is true.
It lengthened their legs. It's kind of freaky.
That would be weird. I'd look like a freaking crane.
He was
big ass long legs, and then normal body for a halfling.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're trying to reach a little beyond the height of the character. So,
I mean, I'm talking more like making guns and stuff, though. He thinks they're cool ideas, but
not like
he's afraid they'll break
reaching the cookie jar, right? We're talking.
Are you saying JD has short man syndrome?
I'm saying that the DM tries to impose short man syndrome on JD. He does not have it himself.
I'm just saying we haven't seen JD for a long time. We're just not getting him back. You better start drinking there, Clan.
I've been drinking. Every one of them. I swear. I'm gonna have to pee for 10 minutes after this is over.
You're gonna have to install a catheter there, Clan.
In a minute that bottle will be empty, and then it'll be full again.
Yeah, I've went through almost 2 whole 16-ounce Diet Cokes. Dang, I've got to put a limit on that thing.
Hey, Clan, do you need one of these? I can send you one of these.
You need one of those hats where you can put a ball on each side and strap.
I do need that. Yeah, that way I can just put it on each one.
Actually, I don't know what else to say about D&D.
I think we're done.
I mean, there's plenty more we can say about D&D, just not about this topic.
To me, it's customization options that Wizards can. That's my biggest group. Like, more magic items, more skill checks that we can do besides just the, which they gave us a lot. They added some that I don't think were there before, but I don't know why they got rid of some of the others. Maybe they were like, oh, well, swimming and it's all athletic stuff. So we'll just simplify it.
I think, though, like you said, the biggest reason that they simplified everything was just to get more people into playing D&D. It wasn't so, daunting a task to want to try to play D&D. You could just grab, the core books or D&D Beyond and go with it. and you're done. You can run a campaign, or at least an adventure. You can run an adventure.
Yeah, I mean, because like that, our Saturday game, when I had JD check that trap, and you said, it looks like it can't be disarmed from here. If it could have been, then those rolls that you're talking about would have made more sense. But like, well, is JD intelligent enough to figure out how to disarm this trap to get that door open? It's like, well,
exactly.
Get frustrated enough, I'm just going to shoot with a gun and see what happens.
Right now, if you go to disarm a trap, I think, pretty sure it says in the rules it's just like a dex based, check to disarm. But really, you have to understand how it works.
Yeah.
And then there's a dexterity part of actually getting in there and not making it blow up in your face.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like you were an EOD guy standing there looking at it going, okay, got to figure out the mechanism. All right, I see how it all moves. Now I got to figure out which wire I've got to cut to make this thing not blow up in my face.
Yeah, I did have an idea, and it's kind of like that. I thought, like, in some instances, you're kind of doing two things at once, whether you're attacking and doing something else. But I thought if you had to do those two things at once, rolling those two skill checks or an attack and a skill check together, and then having it have to hit a target number that's a little bit bigger than it normally would with just one die roll. I was thinking about that the other day, but I don't know. You might have a lot of people failing checks then because it's hard to maybe roll two good rolls in a row. So, or the other one might save it. It may be something neat. So, I don't know. My other rules have been well taken. We do have some good rules though. I do like the natural one double damage stuff.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Yeah, I like that.
Well, like your rule for healing potions.
Yeah.
We haven't fully got to implement them much because our cleric's usually on it.
Yeah.
But, we had an episode where our blood hunter had to down a potion because even the cleric was hurting. And so, that rule came in handy.
Yeah.
But just like last week's campaign, when the wizard was hurting, my character technically wasn't tall enough to force feed him a freaking potion to get his health up.
Yeah.
So I had to improvise on the fly in the middle of combat.
Hold on. You wanted to force feed someone that wasn't actually down a potion?
Yes. and that's why I was like, well, that's why I asked you, was he standing up? You're like, yeah, he's already standing up facing the zombie. And I'm like, well, then I want to get behind this pillar right here and apply a first aid healer's kit on him because I can't do what I was going to do because he's standing up and he's like 7 foot tall and I'm 4'3". Like, there's no way I'm getting there.
Yeah.
That might be one of those things where I make you make like a athletics check or something or acrobatics to kind of jump upon him.
Yeah.
Hey, can we implement a valve about his calf muscle portion of his leg that I can hook a potion into in case we run into this situation again?
I will speak to that a little bit. When I was playing a Warforged, another campaign, my idea was Warforged didn't have to drink. So maybe when he does drink, it goes into a tank. So like I had him drink a bunch of like liquor, and then later I could dispense the liquor through a spout that would, come. I could, open up a little hatch and a spout would come out, and you could drink liquor out.
I mean, I'm just saying, if Warforges don't have to eat or drink,
My mind went to horrible places with that, dude.
Yeah, mine did too. That's why I tried changing it.
I don't think we need to do that. This is chat that never happened. So the conversation gets edited out.
It never
did. If a Warforged can't eat or drink, how do they take a healing potion? Do they just like pour it on their head? Magic. And it just like run down their body and absorb into their metal?
What's that wrestling entrance that you do in that in Sly's wrestling stuff? Is it Triple H or something? Or
yeah, it's Triple H.
You just pour it in your head.
Yeah, yeah. There's no hair there. It just pours on that bald head.
So I mean, if that's the case, then can I take the potion and just chuck it at him as hard as I can, and when it hits him and breaks, he just absorbs the healing potion?
No, they have to consume it. It's a magical thing. Part of the magic, I guess.
Yeah. Middle Ages were magic.
It is a good question.
That's what I've always wondered.
How does healing work, on a Warforged? In 3.5, healing would work on them, but it would only heal them for like 25% or something. You had to have a wizard or a spellcaster use a repair spell, which would repair the Warforged.
So you'd have to have a repair kit on hand.
Well, they didn't use a repair artificer. It was actually a magical spell called repair.
Well, right, but I mean, like just like in
I think now it's mending.
7 Days to Die, where you got to have repair kits to repair your stuff. Be like, Warforged, hang on, I got a repair kit.
No, mending would do it. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a tinkerer.
If you had a repair kit, you can try to. In the middle of combat, it may be difficult.
This is why we need an artificer.
So I've read a little bit about this. It's almost like I mean, the body has to be damaged at some point, right? But it's almost like it's a living machine, and it's not actually considered a golem or something like that. It's actually like a living machine.
I'm all out. But I'm sorry.
Doesn't have to.
It's done.
Here, I'll drink 4 clan.
Or sleep. Yep, we'll drink. Drink for clan.
Sorry, we got you, clan.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
I could take a drink from the special bottle down here.
I'll make it up to you.
Special bottle.
I don't have a special bottle, check.
I mean, the way Diz is talking, he's drinking from Q's special bottle. I don't know.
Or maybe even like it would stored it in a tank, and he would just like kind of push it back out his mouth like he's throwing it back up at them.
See,
that's even worse.
Neither one of those worked, Diz. Nobody wants to be a part of that.
That's horrible.
But it was going to happen. You liked Q. That would have been a very Q thing, right?
I liked Q, but I don't want to see Q pulling either one of those two things.
Our artificer would have definitely went with the nozzle thing first over the regurgitating robot liquor fountain.
So I was thinking maybe I could store healing potions in there while you're unconscious.
Baby burden? Oh, that's just wrong.
Now he stands over you and starts playing "Pour Your Sugar on Me," and then the healing potion comes out,
or he just teabags
you. Oh gosh, almighty, this is going nowhere.
You know, it's a good thing that campaign went to shit.
This Q.
This would have corrupted Q so bad.
Q was great. He was gonna get so demented though.
I was well on my way to corrupting Q.
Oh, clan, I was willing to help you because we were going to make that card teach Q a word.
Yeah.
And I was going to teach him all kinds of shit. Well, actually, it'd have been you teaching him because I'd have played it and then you'd have been teaching Q the word.
Oh, Miss Q. No, all right, so I had an idea for another like segment of the show here. Kind of workshopping the name here. And this is probably not a good name, but like we have a meandering moment or reminiscing moment where we just kind of kind of look up into the air, kind of just reminisce about just random things about D&D that we remember and like. How people do.
Yeah, where they're like, I remember back in the day. And you're like, oh no, here it comes. Here comes the long story, Grandpa. Be like, yep. That I've heard 12 times because you have dementia and Alzheimer's and you don't remember any of this.
I remember back when we had a good Dungeons and Dragons MMO game to play, and it was really popular, and it wasn't all like a iPhone game that they're just trying to make a lot of money off of. Anything else?
I remember thinking that if you wanted to play a really good MMO, you should play the critically acclaimed MMO Final Fantasy 14.
It's not an MMO.
Not sponsored, Chad.
Not sponsored.
I can't believe that you took that over wow. Dang it, Clint.
I guess we can wrap up if there's nothing else. I feel like we've talked this subject to death. If Chad has any other topics for us in future streams, throw them out there for us. Or I think some of us, I don't know if Double Buck has like Twitter and stuff, but I know I do, and Clean Diesel does. Buck does. So you can tweet us, or a lot of you know us, so you can just like, tell us in person or something.
Or go into our Discords.
Go into the Discords.
Yeah.
Send a
I've got
telegraph.
Pretty much all socials. I just haven't hit the go live button on Twitch yet.
We got to do that, Chad. We got to get him to go live.
The problem, Chad, is if I go live, I may not ever unplug.
Well, actually, there's a timeout. Twitch has a timeout. If you stream for so long, it will stop you.
Doesn't mean that I have to unplug.
That's true. He's not real, Chad. He's a Navy AI. Somewhere off the coast of the Black Sea.
I stream from the briny deep.
All right, so man, it's about that time.
That's right. You know what I think? I think all these kids get off our lawn.
All right, we'll see you guys next Thursday.
Bye, chat.
See ya.